Hey, welcome to another episode of Eric's Camping Adventures. Today we're going to talk about wiring up some solar on top of my Honda Pilot. I started this project because I got tired of tripping over cords and cables and panels at my campsite, and I lost a couple panels from wind knocking them over. The materials list for this project is relatively short and not very expensive. Some eco-worthy solar panels, some Harbor Freight rifle cases for storage, some bolts, washers, and screws, and then the solar wiring, however you plan to get the solar power from the outside of your vehicle down inside and adapted to your storage system for power. You're definitely going to want to have a voltmeter for this project, probably a soldering iron, and some small wrenches, screwdrivers, and electrical pliers, and that'll get you going. My first step in this project was to adapt the holes on the back of the solar panels to a longer screw. The short screws would fit through, but they were not long enough to go through the rifle cases for storage. So I opened up the holes with some pliers, put a longer screw through, put the little flap back down, and squished it with a washer so that it was still stable. The first part of this project was a little bit tedious as there were 4 panels and 4 holes and mounting points for each panel. So I went through positioning each screw, got them all done, and got a little bit better at it by the time I got to the last one. After I got the last bolts set, I built myself a template, made sure then that all the bolts lined up with that template, and I was ready to take that template outside and place it on the rifle case. I do want to emphasize that these solar panels are just the right size to fit on top of the Harbor Freight cases. So I want to put a little plug-in for eco-worthy matched up with Harbor Freight rifle case. I marked the hole's location with the drill and then came back and just reamed it just a little bit larger. I undersized my hole for the purpose of keeping it tight, and I reamed it just a little bit with the drill bit itself in order to make it have just a little bit of resistance going into that hole, but not a lot. The template and bolts and panel configuration worked really good. That was just a really snug fit, and just was able to immediately bolt it up, and I chose to use some lock nuts on the bottom side of it, and you can tell by how far they stick out that it is not any kind of impediment on how much you can store in the case at all. On the back ribs of the case, I decided to experiment a little bit with the solar panel wires to see if I could use those back ribs as a place to mount the wires rather than have any kind of attachment or zip ties or anything like that. Just ran them right through the case ribs. If you're interested in the roof rack build you can see in these videos, I'll be leaving some links in the description along with links for the materials used in this build. This is where the voltmeter becomes really important. You need to make sure that you trace your positive and negative wires exactly from your panels, marrying them properly together so that your positive goes into your positive and your negative goes into your negative consistently with 100% accuracy before you decide to plug this into anything. I definitely decided to go for the strength of the connection over the beauty of the connection. I split my larger solar cable, attached the two cables or two little wires together, and then inserted them into the split cable and soldered it together, and I did that just for strength. I used electrical pliers and carefully used a razor blade to remove the insulation from the main cable, and this is the negative terminal, before I ran the wires back through the split cable and soldered it all together. I chose to splice the two ends together for the wires, and then hold them in that position for soldering. And that was my approach to creating strength for these wires so that they would be able to resist the wind going down the highway at 75 miles an hour. That's the highway speed here in Oklahoma. So this is just soldering over on the other storage case with those solar panels. I just split the large cable and spliced in the others and soldered them together. By the way, you can see at the bottom of the screen that there is a tray that I have underneath just in case some solder were to drip off so it doesn't mess up my paint on the top of my vehicle, just to protect the car. So here is the finished appearance of the panels. As you crawl up on top of the vehicle, you can see they're pretty low profile. They don't take up a lot of space. I shouldn't have any problem getting this in and out of my garage with it installed, even with a future lift kit I plan to put on. As the wires come down off the panels to the vehicle, you can see those little round magnets with zip ties running through them that anchor them in place right before they drop down. Inside, you can see my fridge running off my Jackery 500, and everything is charged to 100%. Well, hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of Eric's Camping Adventures. Hope this was helpful.